Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story. Thunder crackled across the Manhattan skyline as Elias Hart's fingers trembled over the invitation to the Metropolitan Museum's charity gala. At 32, he was New York's most eligible bachelor, a man whose very name made headlines, yet his heart remained as untouched as morning snow. The invitation seemed to mock him, with its golden lettering and promise of another evening filled with social expectations. He couldn't meet. Lightning illuminated his penthouse office, casting dramatic shadows across the antique Persian carpets and mahogany furnishings. The space spoke of old money and refined taste, yet there was something almost monastic about its stillness. No personal photographs adorned the walls. No intimate tokens cluttered the massive desk only. The soft ticking of a grandfather clock broke the silence, counting down the moments until tomorrow's gala. "Mr. Hart," Beatrice's voice through the intercom made him jump. "The board is requesting your presence for the emergency meeting, and your mother called again about tomorrow's seating arrangements." Elias ran his fingers through his dark hair, catching a glimpse of himself in the rain-streaked window. Blue eyes stared back at him, holding secrets no one had ever discovered. How could they, when he could barely hold a conversation with a woman without his voice catching in his throat? At business functions, he'd overheard the whispers, how the mighty Elias Hart, who could orchestrate billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, became a stammering schoolboy at the mere prospect of romance. The storm intensified as he made his way to the conference room, his Italian leather shoes silent against the marble floors. Every step echoed with memories of past social failures: the debutante ball where he'd hidden in the coat check room for 2 hours, the charity auction where he'd accidentally bid $10 million in a teapot because he was too flustered by the auctioneer's daughter to pay attention, the countless setup attempts by his well-meaning but exasperated parents. The meeting room fell silent as he entered. 12 board members watched him with calculating eyes, but Elias had learned long ago to mask his discomfort in business settings. Here, numbers were his armor. Spreadsheets and profit margins didn't care about his stutter when nervous or his tendency to blush when addressed directly by an attractive woman. "The Lynn merger," he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "It's falling apart." For the next 3 hours, Elias commanded the room with quiet authority, proving why he had turned his family's million-dollar company into a billion-dollar empire. His mind worked like a supercomputer when it came to business strategy, seeing patterns and possibilities others missed. If only that same brilliance extended to matters of the heart. As the board members filed out, his CFO lingered behind. "Elias, you've saved another deal, but you can't keep hiding in this office forever. You're 32. The shareholders are starting to question the stability of having an unmarried CEO." The words hit harder than they should have. Elias turned to the window, watching lightning split the sky. "The company's performance speaks for itself, Thomas." "The company, yes," Thomas replied. "But what about you?" After Thomas left, Elias retreated to his private elevator, ascending to the secret garden he'd built on the tower's roof. Rain pelted the glass dome above as he walked among the exotic flowers and rare orchids. This was his sanctuary, a place where he could be himself without judgment. Each bloom had been carefully chosen and tended by his own hands, another fact that would surprise those who saw him only as the ice-cold business titan. His phone buzzed with a message from his mother. "The Keller's daughter will be attending tomorrow. She's just finished her MBA at Wharton. Do try to speak to her this time, darling. And please wear the green tie I sent over. It brings out your eyes." Elias's jaw tightened as he knelt beside a delicate white orchid. If only they knew how each of these setups felt like torture. The expectations, the disappointment, the whispers behind raised hands about the billionaire who couldn't even look a woman in the eye. His parents meant well, but their constant matchmaking only intensified his anxiety. A crash of thunder sent him back to his office, where Beatrice waited with a stack of documents requiring his signature. "The final guest list for tomorrow's gala needs your approval," she said, her motherly concern evident in her tone. "And perhaps you'd like to review your speech one more time?" Speech. The word alone made his stomach clench. As the gala's primary benefactor, he was expected to address the crowd. 300 of New York's elite would be watching, waiting for him to stumble. He'd spent weeks practicing in front of his mirror, but the words still felt foreign on his tongue. Late into the night, Elias remained at his desk, reviewing the guest list with meticulous care. Each name represented a potential interaction, another chance for his awkwardness to manifest itself. The rain had softened to a gentle patter against the windows, and the city lights twinkled below like earthbound stars. His fingers paused over one particular entry: Serena Cato, event photographer. Something about the name made his heart skip a beat. Though he couldn't say why, perhaps it was the way the letters seemed to dance on the page, or how the thunder suddenly sounded like distant music. Rising from his desk, Elias walked to the vast windows that formed the eastern wall of his office. The storm had cleared, leaving behind a city washed clean and glittering. Tomorrow, these same streets would lead him to the Metropolitan Museum, where, amid the ancient artifacts and priceless art, his life would change forever. But he didn't know that yet, couldn't know that fate had finally tired of his solitude, and was preparing to send him the one person who would see past his wealth, past his stammering shyness, to the passionate heart that beat beneath his perfectly tailored suits. For now, Elias Hart stood alone in his tower, watching the last raindrops trace silver paths down the glass. His reflection stared back at him, tall, handsome, and utterly unaware that love was about to crash into his carefully ordered world with the force of the storm that had just passed. In less than 24 hours, he would meet a pair of eyes that would see straight through his carefully constructed wall's eyes that belonged to a young photographer named Serena Cato, whose soul would recognize his own across a crowded room. Those eyes would change everything, though he didn't yet know their color, their shape, their power to heal his lonely heart. The grandfather clock struck midnight, its deep tones resonating through the empty office. Elias loosened his tie, finally ready to retire to his penthouse apartment above. As he turned off the lights, a strange sensation settled over him, like the air before lightning strikes. Tomorrow would change everything, though he didn't know why. Perhaps it was the way the storm had made the city feel magical, or how the thunder seemed to echo his lonely heart's beating. But for now, he was simply Elias Hart, the shy billionaire moving through his world of glass and steel, untouched by the tender mercies of love. His last thought, before sleep claimed him, was of the mysterious photographer's name on the guest list, and how it had made his heart flutter in a way no other name ever had. Little did he know, as he drifted off to sleep in his lonely tower, that fate had already set its plan in motion. In just a few hours, love would finally find its way to his door, wearing a camera on a strap and carrying the light of destiny in her smile. Chapter 2. A Chance Encounter. The Metropolitan Museum of Art stood majestic against the evening sky, its limestone facade glowing warmly in the setting sun. Inside the Egyptian wing, Serena Cato adjusted her camera settings with practiced precision, her dark fingers moving deftly across the professional equipment she had saved 3 years to purchase. At 18, she was the youngest photographer ever commissioned for the museum's prestigious charity gala, a fact that both thrilled and terrified her. Ancient sarcophagi and towering statues of forgotten pharaohs watched silently as she tested different angles, seeking the perfect composition to capture the evening's events. Her elegant black evening gown, borrowed from her mother's boutique, whispered against the marble floor as she moved. The dress complemented her deep brown skin and showed just enough sophistication to blend in with the elite crowd while allowing her the freedom to work. Miss Cato, a museum curator, approached, his bow tie slightly askew. The guest will be arriving shortly. Mr. Hart security team requests that you review the approved photography zones one final time. Serena nodded, suppressing a flutter of nervousness at the mention of the evening's principal benefactor. Everyone knew about Elias Hart, the reclusive billionaire whose philanthropy was as legendary as his shyness. She had studied photographs of him while preparing for this assignment. The striking blue eyes that seemed to hold untold mysteries, the strong jaw that featured on countless magazine covers, the slight tension in his smile that hinted at hidden depths. The grand hall began filling with New York's elite, a symphony of designer gowns and million-dollar jewelry. Serena moved among them like a shadow, her camera capturing precious moments with artistic sensitivity. Through her lens, she saw beyond the surface glamour to find the human stories beneath: an elderly couple sharing a secret smile, a young debutante's nervous first appearance in society, a businessman discreetly wiping away a tear during the children's hospital presentation. Then, through her viewfinder, She saw him. Elias Hart stood at the entrance, commanding attention without seeking it. His custom-made tuxedo fit his tall frame perfectly, but it was his expression that caught Serena's breath in her throat. While everyone else worked to be seen, he seemed to wish he could disappear into the ancient stonework behind him. Lowering her camera, Serena watched as he navigated the crowd with careful precision, maintaining a bubble of personal space through subtle body language. She recognized his technique. She used similar movements herself when working events, staying invisible while seeing everything. But there was something more to his isolation, something that called to the artist in her soul. The evening progressed like a carefully choreographed dance. Serena photographed the formal presentations, the auction, the mingling of social circles that had existed for generations. Yet her lens kept finding its way back to Elias. She captured moments no one else seemed to notice. His gentle smile when speaking with a young patient from the children's hospital, his fingers nervously adjusting his cufflinks. When approached by eligible daughters of prominent families, the brief flash of loneliness in his eyes when he thought no one was watching. It happened during the chamber orchestra's performance of Debussy's Clair de Lune. Serena was adjusting her position to photograph the musicians when a group of socialites suddenly moved backward, forcing her to step aside. She collided with someone solid and warm, her camera nearly slipping from her grasp. Strong hands steadied her, and she looked up into eyes so blue they put the sapphires adorning the nearby Egyptian artifacts to shame. Elias Hart himself had caught her, his touch surprisingly gentle for such a powerful man. I'm, his voice caught, a blush creeping up his neck. This close, Serena could see the faint dusting of freckles across his nose, an endearing detail never captured in his magazine photos. "Thank you," she said softly, aware of his discomfort, but unable to look away from those captivating eyes. "You saved my camera, and quite possibly my career." Something shifted in his expression, surprise, perhaps, at her simple acknowledgement of his help without any attempt to prolong the interaction. His hands lingered on her shoulders, a moment longer than necessary, before dropping away. "You're the photographer," he managed, his voice low and pleasantly deep despite its hesitancy. "I saw your portfolio. The Children's Hospital series was extraordinary." Now was Serena's turn to blush, warmth spreading through her chest at his unexpected praise. "You reviewed my work personally?" "I review everything that matters," he said, then seemed startled by his own forthrightness. Before either could speak again, a wealthy dowager swooped in, claiming Elias's attention with practiced authority. Serena slipped away, her heart pounding with an emotion she couldn't quite name. But as she resumed her photography, she felt his gaze following her through the crowded hall. The evening continued its glittering parade, but something had changed in the atmosphere. Whenever Serena raised her camera, she could sense Elias's presence, as if an invisible thread now connected them through the crowded space. Once, catching his reflection in an ancient mirror, she saw him watching her with an expression of such unguarded longing that her finger trembled on the shutter button. Near midnight, as the gala wound down, Serena was photographing the Egyptian wing centerpiece, a massive stone pharaoh, bathed in dramatic lighting when she felt someone approach. The air seemed to crystallize around her as Elias's reflection appeared in her camera's display screen. The ancient Egyptians believed that capturing someone's image also captured a piece of their soul, he said, quietly, his earlier stammer forgotten in the shared solitude of the moment. "They would understand your gift for seeing beyond the surface." Serena lowered her camera slowly, turning to face him. The grand hall had emptied, leaving them alone among the ancient artifacts and lingering notes of Debussy. "And what do you believe, Mr. Hart?" His eyes met hers with newfound courage. "I believe some souls recognize each other across time and space, like they've been searching through ages as vast as these pyramids, waiting for the perfect moment to meet." The words hung between them like suspended starlight. Serena's breath caught at the poetry of his statement, so unexpected from a man known for his reticence. She saw in his face the same loneliness she had captured through her lens, but now it was illuminated by something else. Hope, perhaps, or the first glimmer of possibility. "Then perhaps," she said softly, her heart beating a rhythm as ancient as the stones surrounding them, "some moments are worth waiting many a year for." A ghost of a smile touched his lips, transforming his entire face. He opened his mouth to respond, but the spell was broken by the arrival of his waiting car service. Reality crashed back in, bringing with it all the social barriers and expectations that stood between a teenage photographer and New York's most eligible bachelor. "Good evening, Miss Cato," he said formally, though his eyes spoke volumes more. "Thank you for capturing the essence of tonight's event so beautifully." As he turned to leave, Serena raised her camera one final time, capturing the image of him walking away through the Egyptian wing. The photograph would later become one of her most celebrated works, a study in contrasts between ancient stone and modern man, between power and vulnerability, between loneliness and the promise of love. What she couldn't capture was the way her own heart seemed to follow him out into the New York night, or how the echoes of their brief encounter would reverberate through her dreams like the lingering notes of Clair de Lune. Little did either know that fate had only begun weaving their destinies together, using strands of chance and choice to create a tapestry as intricate as the hieroglyphs watching over their first meeting. For now, they parted ways, the shy billionaire and the young photographer, each carrying a piece of the other's soul, just as the ancient Egyptians would have understood. Chapter 3. Mistaken Identity. The Barnum Brothers' charity circus transformed Central Park into an enchanted realm that seemed to exist outside ordinary time. Crystal chandeliers hung from the peaks of elaborate pavilions, their light mingling with the golden sunset to cast magical shadows across the manicured grounds. The spring air carried a symphony of sensations: the sweetness of cotton candy, the warmth of fresh popcorn, the delicate perfume of early blooming roses, and beneath it all, the electric anticipation of magic about to unfold. New York's elite moved through this wonderland in their finest evening wear, diamonds catching light like captured stars. Yet none of this grandeur held Elias Hart's attention. As he stood beneath an ancient oak tree, one hand constantly straying to the velvet box in his breast pocket. Inside lay a treasure more precious to him than all his billions, a vintage camera pendant that he prayed would convey what his shy heart struggled to express. The pendant had called to him from an antique shop window in the city's oldest quarter, its silver surface etched with delicate roses that seemed to tell a story of beauty found in unexpected places. He'd spent hours studying it under different lights, imagining how it would look against Serena's elegant throat. The 3 weeks since their encounter at the Metropolitan Museum had been filled with thoughts of her gentle smile and the way she saw beyond his awkward exterior to the soul beneath. Beatrice materialized beside him, her presence as reliable as the stars. "Miss Cato arrived 15 minutes ago, sir. She's photographing the pre-show preparations near the performer's entrance." Her tablet cast a soft blue glow in the gathering dusk, illuminating her motherly concern. "She looks lovely in burgundy silk." The circus grounds had been transformed into a labyrinth of wonder. Servers dressed as ethereal woodland creatures offered champagne in crystal flutes. Aerial artists in costumes sewn with starlight performed overhead, their movements telling stories of grace and daring. A string quartet played beneath a silk pavilion, their music weaving through the evening air like golden threads, binding reality and dreams. Near the performer's entrance, Elias caught a glimpse that made his heart stop. Burgundy silk draped elegantly over dark skin, a camera held with loving familiarity. The woman turned at his approach, but despite her striking resemblance to Serena, she was not the photographer who had awakened his heart. "Mr. Hart, I'm Lila Nakamura, Serena's cousin," she said warmly. "She mentioned meeting you at the museum gala. She's actually by the main ring, photographing the trapeze artists." Mortification burned through him as he retreated, seeking refuge behind an elaborate cotton candy stand. The pendant weighed heavily in his pocket, a reminder of his perpetual awkwardness. Above him, acrobats spun through the twilight air, their sequined costumes throwing fractured light across the gathering crowd. The evening's performances began in earnest, but Elias noticed none of it. His eyes continuously searched for Serena among the spectators. Twice more, he approached women in burgundy silk, each mistaken identity chipping away at his fragile confidence. The second woman, a socialite named Abigail Pierce, seemed determined to prolong their interaction despite his stammered apologies. During intermission, he found solitude in a secluded garden area between the tents. Fairy lights twinkled in the trees overhead, creating patterns that reminded him of stars reflected in Serena's dark eyes. The sound of approaching footsteps made him tense, expecting another well-meaning but unwanted interaction. Mr. Hart. That voice, he knew that voice, had dreamed of its gentle cadence for weeks. Slowly he turned. Serena stood before him, her camera hanging at her side, burgundy silk floating around her like an artist's vision. The dress matched the ones worn by her cousin and the other women he'd mistaken for her, but on Serena, it seemed to come alive with an inner radiance that took his breath away. "I heard you've been looking for me," she said softly, amusement warming her tone, though apparently several other women had the honor of being mistaken for me first. Elias wished the ground would open and swallow him whole. "Miss Cato, I apologize for that is, I didn't mean to. Please," she interrupted gently, stepping closer. "Call me Serena, and don't apologize. My cousin Lila told me how sweet you were, how you looked at her thinking she was me. She said your eyes held such hope before you realized your mistake." The fairy lights above caught in her hair like a crown of stars. Serena raised her camera, capturing his expression in that moment. "You look like a prince from a fairy tale," she murmured, lowering the camera, all starlight and shadows. Her words gave him courage. With trembling fingers, he withdrew the velvet box from his pocket. "I found this, that is, I saw it and thought of you, your artistry, your way of seeing beauty in unexpected places." Serena's eyes widened as she opened the box, revealing the vintage camera pendant nestled on black velvet. "It's exquisite," she breathed, running a finger over the etched roses. "But Mr. Elias," he said quickly, "please, if I'm to call you Serena." A smile bloomed on her face, bright as sunrise. "Elias, thank you. No one has ever given me something so thoughtful." Their fingers brushed as she lifted the pendant from its box, sending electricity racing through his veins. With trembling hands, he offered to help her put it on. She turned, presenting her neck, and the trust in that simple gesture nearly undid him. As he fastened the clasp, his fingers grazed the soft skin at her nape. Serena shivered slightly, and Elias fought the urge to draw her closer, to discover if her hair smelled as sweet as he imagined. Instead, he stepped back, maintaining the proper distance that society demanded between a billionaire and a young photographer. "It suits you perfectly," he managed, his voice rougher than he intended. Serena turned back to face him, one hand touching the pendant where it rested against her collarbone. In the distance, the circus music swelled, calling guests back for the second act, but neither moved to leave their enchanted garden. Might I escort you to watch the remaining performances?" Elias asked, finding courage in the way she smiled up at him. "I should be photographing them," she replied, but her hand remained on the pendant, though perhaps I could spare a few moments to see them simply as a spectator, with the right company. Together, they walked back toward the main tent, their steps falling naturally in sync. Above them, the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, blessing this new chapter in their story. The vintage camera pendant gleamed at Serena's throat, catching and reflecting the magical lights of the circus, a symbol of how beauty could be found in the most unexpected encounters, and how love might grow from the sweetest of mistakes. When Elias offered his arm to help her over a section of uneven ground, Serena took it without hesitation. The warmth of her hand through his sleeve felt like coming home, like finding a truth he'd been seeking all his life. In that moment, beneath the circus lights and stars, the shy billionaire and the young photographer began writing their own fairy tale, one gentle touch and understanding smile at a time. The night stretched before them, full of possibility, as Elias finally felt his awkwardness melting away in the presence of someone who saw and appreciated his true self. Every mistaken encounter had led him here, to this perfect moment, with the woman who understood that sometimes the most beautiful photographs and the most beautiful loves come from capturing life's unplanned and imperfect moments. Chapter 4. A Bold Move. The prestigious Grayson Gallery hummed with anticipation as New York's art elite gathered for the opening of its latest exhibition. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over carefully curated photographs, each image telling its own story of urban life and hidden beauty. Serena Cato stood in a quiet corner, her heart racing beneath the sophisticated sapphire silk dress she'd specially chosen for this evening. Her fingers absently touched the vintage camera pendant at her throat, Elias's gift, as she gathered her courage. This was her moment, her first solo exhibition at one of Manhattan's most respected galleries. At 18, she was the youngest photographer ever featured in the Grayson's 100-year history. The collection, titled Hidden in Plain Sight, showcased her unique ability to capture the overlooked beauty in everyday moments. But one photograph, positioned in a place of honor at the gallery's heart, held special significance. The Lonely Prince, as she titled it, captured Elias Hart beneath the fairy lights at the charity circus. In the image, he stood in profile, starlight catching the silver threads of his jacket, while shadows played across his features. His expression held such vulnerable longing that viewers felt they were witnessing a private moment rather than viewing a photograph. The New York Times art critic had already praised it as a masterpiece of contemporary portraiture, revealing the human soul beneath the billionaire facade. Serena hadn't told Elias about the photograph. In the 3 weeks since the circus, she'd seen him only from afar at various charity events, each too crowded for meaningful interaction. But she'd noticed how his eyes sought her in every room, how his usual mask of professional detachment softened whenever their gazes met across the social divide. The gallery owner approached, champagne flute in hand. "Miss Cato, Mr. Hart's office confirmed his attendance tonight as our exhibition's principal patron. He'll want to tour the collection. Shall I arrange a private viewing before the main reception?" "No," Serena said softly, touching the pendant again for courage. "Let him discover it naturally. Art should speak for itself." The evening unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. Distinguished guests arrived in waves, offering congratulations and discussing purchase prices that made Serena's head spin. Her parents, dressed in their finest, moved through the crowd with barely contained pride. Her father, a respected jazz musician, kept wiping tears from his eyes whenever he thought no one was looking. Then, at precisely 8, a ripple of whispers announced Elias's arrival. Serena's breath caught as she watched him enter, impeccable in a charcoal suit that emphasized his tall frame. His characteristic shyness was evident in the slight tension of his shoulders, the way he automatically sought the room's quieter corners. She observed through her photographer's eye, as he moved methodically through the exhibition, studying each image with genuine attention. His security detail maintained a discreet distance, allowing him the space to appreciate the art without interruption. When other guests attempted to approach, his assistant Beatrice smoothly intercepted them. Serena's heart thundered as Elias neared the gallery's central space. She'd positioned herself where she could witness his first reaction to the Lonely Prince while remaining unseen. Time seemed to slow as he rounded the final corner and came face to face with his own image. The change in his expression was subtle but profound. His eyes widened slightly, color rising in his cheeks as he recognized himself. He stepped closer, studying the interplay of light and shadow, the vulnerable humanity she'd captured in that unguarded moment. His fingers lifted as if to touch the frame, then dropped back to his side. "Do you always make your subjects look so luminous, or am I a special case?" Serena started she hadn't heard him approach, yet here he stood beside her, his voice low and intimate despite the crowded gallery. His eyes remained fixed on the photograph, but a slight smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Only the ones who shine from within," she answered softly, "though I admit the fairy lights helped." He turned to her then, and the intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. "You saw me," he said simply. "Not the wealth, not the reputation, not the awkward man who couldn't tell you apart from your cousin. You saw me." "I see you still," Serena replied, taking a deliberate step closer. The height difference between them meant she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact, but she didn't mind. From this angle, she could see the faint freckles across his nose that no magazine photo had ever captured. Around them, the gallery buzzed with conversation and movement, but they remained in their own private bubble of understanding. Elias's hand twitched at his side, as if fighting the urge to reach for her. "The critics are calling it a masterpiece," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "They say it reveals the soul beneath the facade. I wonder, what soul did you see when you took this photograph, Miss Cato?" "Serena," she corrected gently, "and I saw a man who holds himself apart, not from arrogance, but from a deep sensitivity to the world around him, a man who feels everything so intensely that he's built walls to protect his heart." She touched the pendant at her throat, drawing his attention to it. A man who notices delicate details and understands the language of unspoken things. Color bloomed higher in his cheeks, but he didn't look away. And what would this man need to do to prove worthy of such insight? Serena's heart soared at his words, at the tentative hope in his expression. This was her moment to be bold, to bridge the gap between them. "You might start by joining me for a private tour of the exhibition, away from the crowds and cameras, just two people sharing their perspectives on art and life and the beauty of unexpected moments." For a breathless second, she feared she'd been too forward. Then Elias's smile bloomed, transforming his entire face. "I would be honored," he said softly, offering his arm with endearing formality. As they moved through the gallery together, Serena shared the stories behind each photograph. She told him about the elderly couple she'd captured dancing in the rain, about the street musician whose music she translated into visual poetry, about the moment she first discovered her passion for photography while watching light paint patterns on her childhood bedroom wall. Elias listened with rapt attention, asking thoughtful questions that revealed his own artistic sensitivity. When they reached a photograph of dawn breaking over the city, he surprised her with his insight. "The composition reminds me of Turner's later works," he said, gesturing to the interplay of light and shadow, "the way you've captured that moment between darkness and daybreak, when anything seems possible." "You know art history?" Serena asked, delighted by this new facet of him. A slight blush colored his cheeks. Yes. I studied it at university, though I never told my parents. They wanted me focused entirely on business and finance." "What else don't people know about you, Elias Hart?" His eyes met hers with startling intensity. "Would you like to find out?" The question hung between them, weighted with possibility. Serena was acutely aware of their position in a quiet corner of the gallery, partially hidden from view by a large abstract sculpture. The security detail had maintained their distance, and most guests were gathered in the main reception area. "Yes," she said simply. "I would like that very much." Elias's hand found hers, his touch sending electricity racing through her veins. "Have dinner with me," he said softly. "Not at some crowded restaurant where we have to maintain appearances. Let me cook for you in my home. I want to show you the real me, without any masks or pretenses." The intimacy of his invitation took her breath away. "You cook?" "Another secret," he admitted with a shy smile. "I find it meditative, like your photography. It's a way of creating something beautiful from simple elements." Before Serena could respond, Beatrice appeared with apologetic efficiency. "Mr. Hart, the gallery owner is requesting your presence for the official remarks." Reality crashed back in, reminding them of their positions and responsibilities. But as Elias reluctantly released her hand, Serena made her decision. "Tomorrow evening," she said quietly, "I accept your invitation." The joy that blazed across his face was worth any scandal their dinner might create. As he moved away to fulfill his duties as patron, Serena touched the vintage camera pendant once more. She had taken a bold step tonight, bridging the gap between their worlds. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for now, she savored the memory of his smile, of his hand in hers, of the promise of more to come. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and sales discussions. But Serena's thoughts remained fixed on tomorrow. She had seen beneath Elias's carefully constructed facade to the passionate soul within. Now, finally, she would have the chance to know the man himself, away from the watching eyes of society. As the last guests departed and the gallery lights dimmed, Serena stood before the lonely prince once more. The photograph seemed different now, filled with promise rather than melancholy. She had captured Elias in a moment of isolation, but tomorrow would begin a new chapter, one where neither of them would have to be lonely again. The vintage camera pendant gleamed in the fading light, a token of connection between two souls who had found each other across the divide of wealth and status. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. Chapter 5. Pure Hearts. The penthouse kitchen of Hart Tower gleamed in the golden light of sunset, its professional-grade appliances reflecting the warm glow. Elias Hart moved with unexpected grace between the marble countertops, his suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled to reveal strong forearms as he prepared dinner, the air filled with the aromatic blend of fresh herbs and simmering sauces, evidence of the culinary skills he'd kept hidden from the world. The security team had been dismissed to the lower floors, leaving only the soft classical music from hidden speakers to accompany his preparations. In an hour, Serena would arrive. The thought sent his heart racing, though his hands remained steady as he chopped fresh basil for the handmade pasta sauce. Each element of the evening had been carefully planned to reveal another layer of his closely guarded self. The menu featured dishes he'd learned during solitary travels, pasta techniques from an elderly grandmother in Tuscany, sauce recipes from a monastery in Provence, dessert inspiration from a patisserie hidden in a Viennese side street. These were stories he'd never shared, experiences that shaped the man behind the billionaire facade. The fresh pasta sheets rolled out beneath his skilled hands, thin enough for light to pass through. As he worked, Elias allowed himself to recall the previous evening at the gallery, the way Serena's sapphire dress had caught the light, how her quiet confidence had given him courage. The vintage camera pendant he'd given her had rested at the hollow of her throat, a visible symbol of their growing connection. The elevator chimed precisely at 7, and Elias's pulse quickened. He'd given Serena private access to his penthouse level, another gesture of trust that would have scandalized New York society. But conventional protocols seemed meaningless compared to the authenticity of their developing relationship. She appeared in the kitchen doorway like a vision, wearing a simple blue dress that made her dark skin glow. Her camera hung at her side, not for professional purposes, he suspected, but as a comfort object, a part of who she was. "Something smells wonderful," she said softly, taking in the scene before her. Her eyes widened at the sight of him in such a domestic setting, at the evidence of his culinary expertise spread across the countertops. "Welcome to my sanctuary," Elias replied, managing not to stammer, despite the way his heart leaped at her presence. "Few people know this kitchen exists. Most assume I have a private chef." Serena moved closer, studying the fresh ingredients and partially prepared dishes with genuine interest. "These herbs, they're not from a market, are they?" A smile tugged at his lips. "Would you like to see where they came from?" Taking her hand and marveling at how natural the gesture felt. Now, Elias led Serena through glass doors onto his private rooftop garden. The setting sun painted the space in shades of gold and rose, highlighting the careful cultivation of herbs, vegetables, and flowers that represented years of dedicated attention. "It's beautiful," Serena breathed, releasing his hand to explore. Her fingers trailed over fragrant basil leaves and delicate thyme sprigs, like a secret paradise above the city. "It started as a way to find peace," Elias admitted, watching her move through his private Eden. "Business meetings and social obligations drain me. Here, tending to growing things, I can be myself without judgment." Serena turned to face him, her expression soft with understanding. "Is that why you learned to cook, to create something real with your own hands?" "Yes." The simple truth of her insight moved him deeply. When everything in your life is measured in billions, when every interaction is clouded by wealth and expectations, sometimes you need to remember what it means to create something from scratch, to nurture it into being. She stepped closer, close enough that he could detect the subtle fragrance of her perfume mingling with the garden's herbal scents. "Will you show me?" The request held layers of meaning that made his pulse race. "You want to learn to cook?" "I want to learn you," she said simply. "To understand the man who grows herbs on a rooftop and makes pasta by hand, who sees beauty in simple things despite having access to all the world's luxuries." Something shifted in the air between them, a deepening of the connection that had been building since their first meeting. Elias found himself reaching for her hand again, marveling at how perfectly it fit in his. "Then let's begin with the basics," he said softly, leading her back to the kitchen. What followed was an evening unlike any either had experienced. Elias taught Serena the proper way to roll pasta dough, their fingers brushing as he guided her movements. She proved a quick study, her photographer's eye for detail translating well to culinary arts. When flour dusted her cheek, he found the courage to brush it away, letting his fingers linger against her soft skin. They worked together in comfortable harmony, preparing each element of the meal while sharing stories of their lives. Serena told him about growing up in a household filled with music and art, about the first camera her father gave her, about her dreams of capturing moments that would otherwise go unseen. Elias found himself opening up about his lonely childhood in the family mansion, about finding solace in art history books and secret cooking lessons with the household staff. As the pasta sauce simmered, Serena raised her camera. "May I? This light is extraordinary." Elias nodded, for once not feeling self-conscious about being photographed. He continued preparing the garnishes while she captured candid moments, his hands deftly chopping herbs, the steam rising from the pasta pot, the interplay of sunset light through the wine glasses he'd set out. "You're different here," she observed, lowering the camera, "more free." "You make me feel free," he admitted quietly, "like I don't have to hide behind walls of wealth and propriety." Their eyes met across the kitchen island, the air between them charged with unspoken possibilities. Serena set her camera aside and moved around the counter to stand before him. "Then don't hide," she whispered, reaching up to touch his cheek. Be the man I see when I look through my lens, the one with soil under his nails from tending herbs, with flour on his rolled-up sleeves, with passion in his heart for creating beautiful things. Elias covered her hand with his own, turning his face to press a kiss to her palm. The gesture was both innocent and intensely intimate, a perfect expression of their unique connection. The timer chimed, breaking the moment, but not the mood. Together, they plated the meal, handmade tagliatelle with herbs and wild mushrooms, dressed with a sauce that had simmered to perfection. Elias led Serena not to the formal dining room, but to a cozy nook in the garden, where he'd set up an intimate table surrounded by twinkling lights. "It's like the circus garden," Serena noted, touching the vintage camera pendant at her throat. "But this time, we're not hiding from the world. We're just us." "Just us," Elias agreed, holding her chair with old-world courtesy. The meal was extraordinary, but it was the conversation that made the evening magical. They talked for hours, sharing dreams and fears, laughing over childhood memories, discovering the countless ways their souls aligned, despite their different backgrounds. When Serena described her vision for future photography projects, Elias found himself offering not just financial backing, but creative insights that revealed his deep understanding of art. As the night air cooled, Elias draped his jacket over Serena's shoulders. The gesture brought them closer, and suddenly the air between them crackled with awareness. The twinkling lights reflected in her eyes as she looked up at him, and Elias felt his perpetual shyness melt away in the warmth of her gaze. "Serena," he whispered, her name a prayer on his lips. "May I?" "Yes," she breathed, rising on her toes to meet him halfway. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a sweet exploration of newfound territory. Elias's hands trembled as they framed her face, but there was no awkwardness in the way their lips met, no hesitation in how they moved together. When they finally parted, both were breathing unevenly, transformed by the intensity of the connection they'd forged. "I never knew," Elias murmured, resting his forehead against hers. "I never knew it could be like this." "Like what?" Serena's fingers curled into his shirt, holding him close. "Like coming home," he said simply. "Like finding a piece of myself I didn't know was missing." She smiled, and the radiance of it outshone all the twinkling lights in the garden. "Then perhaps we should consider this just the beginning." As they stood together under the stars, surrounded by the herbs and flowers he'd tenderly cultivated, Elias marveled at how this young photographer had unlocked the chambers of his heart so effortlessly. His shyness, his wealth, his carefully constructed walls, none of it mattered in the face of their pure and growing love. The city stretched out below them, a tapestry of lights and shadows, but their world had narrowed to this rooftop garden, to the miracle of two hearts beating in synchrony, to the promise of more evenings, filled with cooking and conversation, with understanding and acceptance, with kisses that tasted of hope and possibility. When Serena finally left that night, carried down to her waiting car in his private elevator, both knew that everything had changed. Their hearts, once guarded for different reasons, had found safe harbor in each other. The shy billionaire and the sensitive photographer had discovered something rare and precious, a love based not on wealth or status, but on the pure recognition of kindred souls. Chapter 6. The Proposal. The Metropolitan Museum stood silent in the pre-dawn darkness, its magnificent facade illuminated only by the soft glow of security lights. Elias Hart approached the employee entrance, his heart thundering beneath his impeccably tailored suit. In his pocket, a small velvet box held the culmination of 3 months of secret preparation, a ring as unique as the woman he hoped would wear it. The museum's director greeted him personally, accepting the cashier's check that had secured this unprecedented private access. As they walked through the darkened Egyptian wing, Elias's mind drifted to that first magical evening when he'd met Serena in this very hall. How fitting that their story should come full circle here. For the past week, teams had worked through the night, transforming the space according to his vision. 10,000 white roses filled the ancient hall, their perfume mingling with the mysterious scent of antiquity. Tiny lights twinkled among the blooms like earthbound stars, creating an ethereal atmosphere that bridged past and present. At the center of it all stood an elegant display case, empty now, but soon to hold the portfolio that would change everything. Elias checked his watch. In exactly 2 hours, Serena would arrive, believing she had been commissioned to photograph a new Egyptian artifact before the museum opened. The past 3 months had been the happiest of his life. Each day with Serena had peeled away another layer of his shyness, revealing the passionate soul beneath. Their evenings in his rooftop garden, cooking together and sharing dreams, had become the foundation of a love deeper than he'd ever imagined possible. Beatrice appeared at his elbow, clipboard in hand. "Everything is in place, sir. The musicians are stationed in the alcoves. The temperature has been adjusted to protect the roses, and security has established the privacy perimeter." Elias nodded, too nervous to speak. In his 32 years, he had negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, but this morning, his hands trembled as he adjusted his tie. "She'll say yes," Beatrice said softly, her usual professional demeanor softening with maternal affection. "Anyone who sees you together knows this is meant to be." The next hour passed, in a blur of final preparations. Elias inspected every detail, the precise arrangement of roses, the angle of lighting that would illuminate Serena's path through the gallery, the ancient Egyptian love poems he'd had inscribed in gold leaf on silk banners hung between the columns. At precisely 6:45, his phone buzzed with a message from security. Serena had arrived. Elias took his position beside the central display case, his heart pounding so hard he feared the sound might echo off the limestone walls. The massive wooden doors opened, and there she was. Serena stood framed in the entrance, her camera bag over one shoulder, wearing a simple cream dress that made her dark skin glow in the romantic lighting. She took 2 steps into the hall before freezing, her eyes widening as she absorbed the transformation before her. "Elias," she whispered, her voice carrying clearly in the hushed space. He moved toward her with measured steps, drinking in every detail of her expression, the way her lips parted in surprise, how her fingers instinctively reached for the vintage camera pendant he'd given her so many months ago. "Welcome back to where our story began," he said softly, taking her hands in his. His voice trembled slightly, but his eyes held hers with unwavering devotion. "Do you remember what you told me about the ancient Egyptians? How they believed capturing an image could capture a piece of someone's soul?" Serena nodded, tears already gathering in her eyes as understanding dawned. "You captured my soul that first night," Elias continued, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "Not just in your photograph, but in the way you saw past all my walls to the man beneath. You gave me the courage to be myself, to believe that my heart was worth sharing." From hidden alcoves, the string quartet began playing Clair de Lune, the same piece that had been playing during their first touch. The music floated through the rose-scented air like a benediction. "These past 3 months have been a revelation," he said, leading her slowly through the garden of white roses. "Every day with you shows me new possibilities, new depths of feeling I never knew existed. You've taught me that true strength lies not in hiding one's heart, but in having the courage to share it freely." They reached the central display case, where a leather portfolio lay on white silk. "Open it," Elias whispered. With trembling fingers, Serena lifted the portfolio's cover. Inside lay photographs, dozens of them, but not the ancient artifacts she'd expected. Instead, she found images of herself, taken secretly over the past months, laughing in his rooftop garden, concentrating as she adjusted her camera settings, sleeping peacefully in a patch of sunlight during their picnic in Central Park. Each photo captured a moment of natural beauty, of unguarded joy. "You've spent your life capturing the beauty others miss," Elias said softly. "Let me show you how beautiful you are through my eyes." The final page held a single image, Elias himself, looking at Serena with such naked adoration that it took her breath away. Beatrice had taken the photograph during an unguarded moment at his last charity gala. As Serena stared at the picture, Elias sank to one knee beside her. The velvet box opened with a soft snap, revealing a ring that made her gasp. The central stone was not a traditional diamond, but a rare, color-changing alexandrite, surrounded by tiny diamonds set to look like camera aperture blades. "Serena Cato," he said, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes, "you've taught me that love isn't about perfection, it's about seeing the beauty in our imperfections and choosing to embrace them together. Every day with you makes me want to be a better man, to live up to the way you see me through your lens." The string quartet swelled, and 10,000 roses seemed to hold their breath as Elias spoke the words he'd rehearsed countless times. "Will you marry me? Will you continue capturing our story together, building a life filled with all the beauty and truth and passion that you've awakened in my heart?" Serena's tears fell freely now, sparkling like diamonds in the ethereal lighting. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes, with all my heart, yes." The ring slid perfectly onto her finger. He'd secretly measured her hand while she slept during their garden picnic. As he rose, Serena surprised him by pulling him into a deep kiss, pouring all her love and joy into the connection. For once, Elias forgot to be shy, forgot about propriety and social expectations. He lifted her off her feet, spinning them both among the roses as their laughter echoed off the ancient stones. When he finally set her down, Serena couldn't stop staring at the ring. "It changes color," she marveled, watching the stone shift from deep blue to rich violet as it caught different angles of light. "Like your photographs," Elias explained, brushing away her happy tears with gentle fingers, finding beauty in changing perspectives, revealing different truths, depending on how the light strikes. He hesitated, then added softly, "Like how you've changed me, helping me find colors in life I never knew existed." The sun had begun to rise, sending rays of golden light through the museum's high windows. The beams caught the roses and crystal chandeliers, creating rainbow prisms that danced around them like blessings. In that moment, surrounded by flowers and light and the echoes of their joy, Elias and Serena began writing the next chapter of their story. Beatrice appeared briefly to offer champagne, then tactfully withdrew, leaving the newly engaged couple to savor their private paradise. As they toasted their future, Serena suddenly laughed. "What is it, my love?" Elias asked, still marveling at how easily terms of endearment now fell from his once shy lips. "I was just thinking," she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief and joy, "that for a man who could barely speak to women 3 months ago, you certainly know how to make a spectacular proposal." Elias gathered her close, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair mingled with rose perfume. "You make me brave," he whispered. "You make me want to shout my love from every rooftop in Manhattan." "Save some declarations for the wedding," Serena teased, then grew serious. "Although, speaking of that, your family," he silenced her concern with a tender kiss. "You are my family now," he said firmly. "Everything else will fall into place." As the morning light grew stronger, they remained in their private Eden, planning their future between kisses and sips of champagne. The ancient Egyptian artifacts stood silent witness to their joy, perhaps remembering other lovers who had sworn eternal devotion within these walls. Later, photographs of the proposal would grace the society pages Elias had arranged for a discreet professional photographer to document the moment, but the most precious image was one. Serena captured herself, their intertwined hands resting among white rose petals, the Alexandrite ring catching the light, transforming ordinary morning sun into something magical. Just like their love had transformed a shy billionaire and a young photographer into something extraordinary, 2 hearts beating as one, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, secure in the knowledge that they had found their perfect match in an imperfect world. Chapter 7. Family Tensions. The Hart family estate loomed against the autumn sky, its limestone facade gleaming like polished bone in the morning light. Serena stood beside Elias at the grand entrance, her hand tucked into his arm. The Alexandrite engagement ring caught the sunlight, shifting from deep blue to violet, a reminder of the love that had brought them to this moment and the challenges that lay ahead. Winston, the elderly butler, who had served 3 generations of Harts, opened the massive oak doors with practiced ceremony. His face remained carefully neutral, though decades of service had taught him to read the undercurrents of family drama. He had witnessed countless society marriages, arranged alliances between old money families. This, a genuine love match between the shy heir and a young photographer, was unprecedented. "Welcome home, Mr. Hart," Winston intoned formally, then added with the slightest softening of his voice, "Miss Cato." The entrance hall soared 3 stories high, crowned by a crystal chandelier that had once graced a European palace. Serena's artistic eye appreciated the interplay of light and shadow, the way morning sun painted Baroque patterns across the marble floors. Yet she also noticed the subtle tensions, how the maids averted their eyes, how the footmen's shoulders stiffened as they passed. Victoria Hart's appearance was timed for maximum dramatic effect. She descended the grand staircase like a queen approaching her throne, every silver hair arranged with military precision, her Chanel suit an armor of propriety and privilege. Behind her came Edward Hart, his distinguished features arranged in careful neutrality that spoke volumes about years of choosing peace over confrontation. "Darling," Victoria said, air kissing Elias's cheeks, while her eyes assessed Serena with the cold calculation of a general surveying enemy territory. "We've had the East Wing prepared for your stay." Her gaze slid past Serena, as if she were invisible. "Winston will show your guest to one of the garden rooms." "Mother," Elias's voice held an edge of steel beneath its cultured tones, "my fiancé will be staying with me in the East Wing. We're here as a couple." A flash of displeasure crossed Victoria's face before her social mask snapped back into place. "Of course, darling. How progressive of you, though. Perhaps we should discuss certain arrangements privately." The first week unfolded like an elaborate chess game, with Victoria orchestrating each move to emphasize the divide between old money and new love. Luncheons were scheduled without informing Serena until the last moment, ensuring she had nothing suitable to wear. Conversations were peppered with references and code words known only to those who had grown up in their privileged circle. The staff, taking their cue from Victoria's Arctic courtesy, treated Serena with bare minimum respect. Serena met each challenge with quiet dignity that only seemed to fuel Victoria's determination to break her. When Victoria commented on her quaint table manners at dinner, Serena simply smiled and asked the older woman to demonstrate the proper technique. When Edward pointedly discussed prenuptial agreements over breakfast, she engaged him in a surprisingly knowledgeable conversation about contract law that left him blinking in confusion. The servants watched this daily dance of dominance with increasing fascination. They had witnessed Victoria's campaigns against previous, unsuitable attachments, had seen wealthy socialites flee the estate in tears. But Serena was different. She met cold courtesy with genuine warmth, responded to exclusion with inclusion. The turning point with the staff came one morning when they found her in the kitchen at dawn, preparing her father's special Sunday breakfast, spiced French toast with caramelized bananas. Mrs. Langley, the cook who had served the family for 20 years, watched suspiciously until Serena offered her a taste and asked about the history of the estate's culinary traditions. Soon, the kitchen became Serena's sanctuary within the fortress of formality. She learned the servants' stories, remembered their children's names, showed genuine interest in their lives beyond service. Slowly, the staff's frosty reserve began to thaw, though they maintained proper distance whenever Victoria might observe them. Elias watched his fiancée navigate these treacherous waters with growing admiration and guilt. Each night, as they retired to their wing of the mansion, he held her closer, whispering apologies for his family's behavior. But Serena simply kissed him and said, "They're scared of change. We'll show them there's nothing to fear." The situation reached its crescendo during preparations for the annual Heart Foundation Gala. Victoria had taken complete control of all arrangements, deliberately excluding Serena from every decision. The morning of the event, Serena entered the ballroom to find Victoria supervising the flower arrangements with military precision. "Oh dear," Victoria said, her voice dripping with false concern. "That dress simply won't do for tonight. The photographers will be from all the best society magazines. Perhaps you should dine in your room." Serena touched the vintage camera pendant that never left her throat, drawing strength from its connection to Elias. "Actually, Mrs. Hart, I plan to photograph the event myself. I thought it would make a more personal touch for the Foundation's annual report." "A servant's role?" Victoria's smile turned glacial. "How appropriate." "Not a servant," Serena replied quietly. "An artist one who sees beauty in unexpected places and believes every person has value beyond their social position." That evening, Serena descended the grand staircase in a gown that made even Victoria's criticism falter. The deep violet silk, custom designed by a rising star in the fashion world, transformed with every movement like her engagement ring. Her camera, customized in silver and pearl, hung at her side like an elegant accessory. Throughout the night, she moved among the guests with natural grace, capturing moments that revealed the heart of the Foundation's mission. Her genuine interest in the charity's work and her artistic eye impressed the board members, who had grown tired of the same stiff, formal photographs year after year. When she overheard Victoria dismissively introducing her as the help to a prominent donor, Serena simply smiled and offered to show them her recent exhibition catalog from the Grayson Gallery. The donor, it turned out, had been trying to secure a showing there for years. The night wore on a glittering parade of wealth and influence, yet beneath the surface glamour, a subtle shift had begun. Servants found excuses to pass close to Serena, earning her warm smile. Junior board members sought her out for earnest discussions about modernizing the foundation's image. Even some of Victoria's oldest allies seemed charmed by the young photographer's genuine warmth and artistic vision. Later that night, as the last guests departed, Serena found Elias in his father's study, reviewing donation pledges. He looked up as she entered, his eyes softening with love and concern. "I heard what Mother said," he began, but Serena silenced him with a gentle finger to his lips. "Your mother is afraid," she said softly. "Afraid of change, afraid of losing you, afraid of anything that threatens her carefully ordered world. But fear can't survive in the presence of love." Elias pulled her into his arms, marveling at her wisdom and strength. "How did I get so lucky?" "It's not luck," Serena whispered against his chest. "It's recognizing your own heart in another soul." The vintage camera pendant gleamed in the study's warm light, a symbol of their journey from that first chance meeting to this moment of quiet triumph. Outside the windows, the estate's gardens stretched into shadow, but tomorrow would bring new light, new challenges, new opportunities to prove that love could transform even the coldest hearts. For now, they held each other in the sanctuary of the study, two hearts beating as one, their love stronger than any social barrier or family disapproval. Victoria's warfare of privilege and protocol had failed to break them. Instead, it had revealed the true nobility of Serena's spirit, not in her ability to meet cruelty with cruelty, but in her grace to rise above it with unwavering love and dignity. Chapter 8. The plot rain lashed against the windows of the Hart estate as Victoria Hart presided over a clandestine meeting in her private drawing room. Ancient mahogany paneling absorbed the golden light from crystal sconces, casting deep shadows that seemed to move with sinister purpose. The grandfather clock struck midnight, its deep tones echoing through corridors that had witnessed generations of family secrets. Around Victoria's Louis, the 14th desk, gathered a select group of conspirators. Leonard, the head of security, whose loyalty had been purchased with generous bonuses over 2 decades. Miss S. Harrow, her social secretary, who had orchestrated countless character assassinations in New York's highest circles. And Victor Ramsey, a man whose services in creating convenient scandals had made him invaluable to wealthy families seeking to protect their bloodlines. "The situation has become untenable," Victoria pronounced, her voice as cold as the rain outside. "My son has lost all perspective over this photographer. The family name must be protected, and more importantly, the foundation's reputation cannot be risked on a romantic folly." Leonard spread blueprints of the estate across the desk, pointing to the conservatory. "We've installed new security cameras here and here. The angles have been carefully calculated to capture maximum dramatic effect while obscuring any contextual details that might contradict our narrative." Miss S. Harrow consulted her tablet, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the screen. "I've already begun planting rumors among the society columnists, subtle suggestions about Miss Cato's ambitions, her mysterious past, her seemingly calculated rise in artistic circles. When the incident occurs, the groundwork will be laid for public opinion to turn against her." Victor lounged in an antique armchair, his expensive suit a masterpiece of subtle menace. "My role is clear: a chance encounter in the conservatory, witnessed only by the cameras. A struggle that can be interpreted multiple ways depending on the editing. Her flight from the scene, appearing as an admission of guilt." His smile never reached his eyes. "I've orchestrated similar scenarios for 3 other prominent families this year alone." Victoria lifted a crystal decanter, the amber liquid within catching the lamplight. "The Foundation's annual audit begins next week. Elias will be occupied with meetings for hours each day, leaving ample opportunity for our intervention." In the East Wing, unaware of the plot being woven against their happiness, Serena and Elias shared a quiet evening. She sat at her editing desk, reviewing photographs from their recent work at the Children's Hospital. The images captured moments of pure joy. Young patients learning to express themselves through art, Elias's natural gentleness as he helped them hold cameras with trembling hands, the transformation of sterile hospital rooms into galleries of hope. "Look at this one," Serena called softly, gesturing Elias over. The photograph showed him teaching a young girl to make origami cranes. His usual reserve melted away by her innocent enthusiasm. "You never look more handsome than when you're being kind." He pressed a kiss to her temple, breathing in the familiar scent of her jasmine shampoo. "You make me want to be kind, to be better in every way." Their peaceful moment shattered as Winston knocked at the door, his usual dignity strained by something darker in his manner. "Pardon the intrusion, but Mrs. Hart requests Miss Cato's presence in the conservatory tomorrow morning. She wishes to discuss flower arrangements for the wedding." After the butler departed, Serena turned to Elias with cautious hope. "Perhaps she's finally accepting us." "Be careful, my love," he cautioned, remembering his mother's capacity for subtle cruelty. Her acceptance never comes without conditions. The next morning dawned gray and forbidding. Serena dressed with particular care, choosing a cream silk blouse and tailored trousers that projected both confidence and respect. The vintage camera pendant rested at her throat like a talisman against darkness. The conservatory stood empty when she arrived, its glass walls streaked with rain. Exotic flowers released heady perfume into the humid air, making her feel slightly dizzy as she waited. Serena noticed new security cameras in the corners, unusual additions to what had always been a private family space. Minutes stretched into an hour. No Victoria, no wedding discussion. Instead, Victor entered with predatory grace, his practiced smile never warming his calculated gaze. "Miss Cato, Miss S. Hart, sent me to discuss the wedding photography requirements." Serena's instincts flared a warning. "I wasn't aware we were hiring additional photographers." He moved closer, too close, his cologne overwhelming the flower's natural fragrance. "Oh, I'm not here about photography." What happened next unfolded with nightmare precision. Victor grabbed her arms, his grip bruising. Serena's self-defense training kicked in. She drove her elbow back, heard his grunt of pain, but he was stronger, obviously trained. As they struggled, she noticed the security camera's red lights blinking steadily, documenting what would become Victoria's weapon against the woman she believed had bewitched her son. Using techniques learned from years of maneuvering through crowded events with expensive camera equipment, Serena twisted free. She ran through the rain-slicked gardens, her cream silk blouse now muddied and torn. Behind her, Victor called out in mock concern, playing his part for the cameras. In her suite, Serena's hands shook as she packed a small bag. Her photographer's eye could already see how the security footage would be edited, the intimate setting, the seemingly compromising position, her flight casting the appearance of guilt. Victoria had orchestrated the perfect scandal. She could fight it, explain the truth to Elias, but that would mean exposing his mother's machinations, forcing him to choose between family loyalty and love. The resulting scandal would damage not just the Hart name, but the charitable foundation that helped so many children. Serena's fingers brushed the vintage camera pendant as tears fell silently. Then, with the same quiet dignity that had carried her through every challenge, she began to write. "My dearest love, some dreams, no matter how beautiful, must remain dreams. Your world has rules and responsibilities that I cannot ask you to abandon. The Foundation's work is too important to risk for one heart's happiness. Know that you taught me what true love means, not just passion, but the kind of love that puts another's well-being first. That is why I must go. Your family needs you. Those children need you. And I need you to be the man I know you are, even if it means loving you from afar. The pendant stays, as do the photographs. Let them remind you not of what was lost, but of how much you are capable of giving. Your heart's capacity for kindness must not be buried beneath scandal and family strife. All my love, Serena." She placed the letter on his pillow beside a single printed photograph, the two of them in his rooftop garden, caught in a moment of pure joy by her camera's timer, their last evening of innocence before the weight of society's expectations had crushed their dreams. The rain had softened to a gentle mist as Serena slipped out through a service entrance. Behind her, the Hart estate rose like a fortress, its windows gleaming with false welcome. She had arrived as a bride-to-be, full of hope and determination to prove herself worthy. She left with nothing but a muddied blouse and a heart full of unspoken truth. In her haste, she didn't notice Clara, the elderly housekeeper, watching from an upstairs window. Clara, who had witnessed Victoria's late-night meeting, who had recognized Victor from her own past in domestic service. Clara, whose conscience would soon overcome her fear of unemployment. As Serena's taxi disappeared down the estate's winding drive, the first ray of sunlight broke through the clouds. It caught the tears on her cheeks, transforming them momentarily into diamonds precious and pure, like the love she was leaving behind. In her small bag, carefully wrapped, lay proof of Victoria's plot, photographs he had managed to capture during the staged attack. But using them would mean tearing Elias's family apart, shattering his world in ways that went beyond mere scandal. The vintage camera pendant weighed heavy against her throat, a reminder of innocence lost and dreams deferred. Yet even in this moment of deepest pain, Serena's photographer's eye couldn't help but notice the poetry of the scene, how the estate's imposing facade now seemed more prison than palace, how the carefully tended gardens blurred behind her tears into impressionist smears of color and loss. Love, in its purest form, sometimes meant walking away so that others could remain whole. This was the final photograph in their album of happiness, not captured on film, but etched forever in her heart, the day she chose his well-being over her own dreams, proving that true love transcends even the bonds of togetherness. Chapter 9. Truth revealed, the heart estate descended into shadows as evening approached. Elias stood motionless in his private study, Serena's letter crushed in his trembling hand. The words blurred before his eyes, each sentence a dagger to his heart. Outside, thunder rolled across the darkening sky, an echo of the storm raging within him. Clara, the elderly housekeeper who had served the family for 30 years, knocked softly at the door. Her weathered face bore the weight of a truth she could no longer contain. "Mr. Elias," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "there's something you must know." The security footage played on his laptop, showing the conservatory from multiple angles. Elias watched with growing horror as the scene unfolded, the hired man's calculated approach, Serena's defensive struggle, her desperate flight through the rain. But it was the timestamp that drew his attention precisely, when his mother had insisted on reviewing charity proposals with him in his office, ensuring he would be unavailable. "Your mother arranged it," Clara confirmed, her hands twisting her apron. "The cameras were installed the night before." The man, I recognized him. He works for a private security firm that specializes in creating scandals for wealthy families who want to prevent unsuitable marriages. Elias's fingers traced the edge of his desk, finding the small notch where Serena had accidentally bumped her camera during their last evening together. The memory of her laugh, bright and unrestrained, contrasted sharply with the brutality he had just witnessed. "How long have you known?" His voice emerged rough with suppressed emotion. "I overheard the planning meeting last night. Your mother," Mr. Leonard from security. "And that man," Clara's voice faltered. "I should have warned Miss Serena, but I was afraid. Your mother made it clear that anyone who interfered would be immediately dismissed. At my age, finding new employment, you're doing the right thing now," Elias said quietly. "That's what matters." Rising from his desk, Elias moved to the window. The garden where he and Serena had shared so many precious moments lay drenched in rain. His reflection stared back at him, no longer the shy, uncertain man she had first met, but someone transformed by love and now by righteous anger. "Where is my mother?" "In the blue drawing room, sir. She's meeting with the wedding planner to cancel all arrangements." Elias's jaw tightened. "Have Winston bring everyone to the main hall, every staff member, every security guard, everyone who witnessed or participated in this scheme, and call Mr. Grayson from legal." As Clara hurried to fulfill his instructions, Elias retrieved something from his safe, a leather portfolio containing documents he had prepared months ago but never thought he'd need to use. His father had always warned him to be prepared for any eventuality in business. How ironic that this lesson would be applied to family matters. The main hall filled slowly with nervous staff members. Victoria arrived last, her expression shifting from annoyance to concern as she took in the assembled crowd and her son's rigid posture at the foot of the grand staircase. "Darling, what's the meaning of this theatrical display? I thought we'd agreed to handle the unfortunate situation with your former fiancé discreetly." "Agreed?" Elias's voice cut through the hall like steel. "The way you agreed with the man you hired to assault her? The way you agreed to destroy security footage that might show the truth?" Victoria's face paled, but she maintained her composure. "I did what was necessary to protect this family, to protect you from a fortune hunter who taught me the meaning of real love," Elias interrupted. "Who showed me that true nobility comes from actions, not ancestry. Who faced every slight, every calculated insult with grace and dignity, while you plotted like a character from a Victorian melodrama." He opened the portfolio, removing several documents. "Mr. Grayson, please explain to my mother exactly what these papers mean." The family lawyer stepped forward, his expression grave. Mrs. Hart, these documents transfer complete operational control of the Hart Group and Foundation to Mr. Elias, effective immediately, as per the terms established by your late father-in-law. Any attempt to manipulate or coerce the designated heir's personal life constitutes grounds for immediate removal from all positions of authority within the family enterprises. Victoria swayed slightly, reaching for the banister to steady herself. You wouldn't dare. The scandal, the only scandal, Elias said firmly, is how far you are willing to go to maintain your illusion of control. Every person in this room witnessed your plot. Every security camera captured the truth. You've lost, Mother. The only question is whether you'll lose with dignity or force me to make this public. Turning to address the assembled staff, Elias's voice softened. Those of you who participated in this scheme have a choice. You can tender your resignations immediately with full references, or you can stay and help build something better. This house has been ruled by fear and manipulation for too long. That ends today. Mr. Leonard, the head of security, stepped forward first. Sir, one offer my resignation, and, he hesitated, then continued, I have copies of all communication regarding this plot. They're yours to use, as you see fit. One by one, others came forward either to resign or to pledge their loyalty to the new order Elias proposed. Throughout it all, Victoria stood frozen on the stairs, watching her carefully constructed world crumble. The car is waiting to take you to the city apartment, Elias informed her quietly. You'll maintain your social position and public role in the Foundation, but your days of controlling this family are over. As Victoria was led away by Winston, Clara approached Elias with tears in her eyes. Miss Serena, she left to protect you, to protect the Foundation's work. She loved you enough to walk away, rather than force you to choose. I know, Elias replied, touching the spot where Serena's camera had marked his desk. And now I have to prove I'm worthy of that love by choosing her anyway. Moving purposefully to his study, Elias began making calls. Private investigators were dispatched to find Serena. The family's PR team was instructed to prepare statements celebrating rather than hiding his relationship with a talented young photographer. Every resource at his disposal was directed toward one goal, bringing Serena home. As midnight approached, Elias stood in his rooftop garden at Hart Tower, surrounded by the herbs and flowers they had tended together. The vintage camera pendant he had given her lay in his palm, discovered on her pillow along with a final photograph, their moment of pure joy, captured for eternity. I'm coming for you, my love, he whispered to the night sky. And this time, nothing will tear us apart. The city lights sparkled below like fallen stars, each one holding the possibility that it might guide him to Serena. Tomorrow, he would begin his search in earnest. But tonight, he allowed himself to feel the full weight of what had happened. The betrayal, the revelation, and most importantly, the strength he had found to stand up for love. In his pocket, his phone buzzed with a message from Clara. Found something in Miss Serena's editing room. Come quickly. Attached was a photo showing a memory card hidden behind a loose baseboard, perhaps containing the evidence Serena had managed to gather during her ordeal. Hope blazed in Elias's heart as he headed for his private elevator. The shy billionaire who had once hidden from love had been transformed into a warrior, ready to fight for it. Somewhere in this vast city, Serena waited, believing she had sacrificed their happiness for his sake. He would show her that true love was worth fighting for, worth changing for, worth turning the world upside down to preserve. Chapter 10. Reconciliation. The small photography studio in Brooklyn seemed a world away from the opulent Hart estate. Serena moved mechanically through her daily tasks, editing wedding photographs for clients who still believed in happy endings. 3 weeks had passed since she had walked away from her own chance at happiness, though each hour felt like an eternity. The afternoon light filtered through industrial windows, casting long shadows across her workspace. Her camera equipment, once a source of joy, now felt heavy with memories of moments she could never recapture. The absence of the vintage camera pendant at her throat was a constant reminder of what she had sacrificed. The bell above the door chimed, signaling a client's arrival. We're closed for appointments, Serena called, without looking up from her editing screen, where a bride's radiant smile seemed to mock her own loss. I'm not here for an appointment. That voice, Serena's hands froze over her keyboard as Elias's reflection appeared in her darkened monitor. She turned slowly, hardly daring to believe he was real. He stood in the doorway, his usual impeccable appearance slightly disheveled, as if he had been searching for hours. In his hands, he held the memory card she had hidden in the editing room, her insurance against Victoria's schemes, though she had never intended to use it. "How did you find me?" she whispered. "Your father," Elias replied, stepping into the studio. "It took some convincing, but when I showed him the evidence of what really happened, he understood why I needed to find you." Serena rose from her desk, maintaining distance between them, despite every instinct urging her to run into his arms. "The Foundation, your family, are no longer in a position to interfere with our happiness." Elias's voice held a new strength and authority she had never heard before. "My mother's plots have been exposed. She's been removed from operational control of the family enterprises. The staff who participated have either resigned or pledged their loyalty to a new way of doing things." He moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "But none of that matters compared to finding you, to making you understand that you never needed to protect me by leaving. I'm stronger than that. We're stronger than that." Serena felt tears threatening to fall. "I couldn't let you choose between your family and me. The Foundation's work, those children who need help. The Foundation will continue its work, but under new leadership hours, if you'll still have me." Elias closed the remaining distance between them, reaching for her hands. "You taught me that real nobility isn't about maintaining appearances or controlling others. It's about having the courage to stand up for what's right, to fight for love even when it seems impossible." From his pocket, he withdrew the vintage camera pendant. "You left this behind, along with my heart. I'd very much like to return both to their rightful owner." Serena's resolve crumbled as he gently fastened the pendant around her neck, his fingers lingering against her skin, sending familiar electricity through her veins. "Elias," she breathed, "I never stopped loving you." "I know," he said softly. "Every photograph you left behind told me that the way you captured our joy, our connection. No one who looked at those images could doubt the depth of your feelings." He cupped her face in his hands, his touch infinitely tender. "But I need you to understand something. I'm not the same man who let fear and family expectations rule his life. You showed me what real strength looks like, not in grand gestures or social power, but in the quiet dignity with which you faced every challenge." Tears fell freely now as Serena leaned into his touch. "I was so afraid that exposing your mother's plot would destroy everything you built." "You protected me," Elias acknowledged. "Now let me protect you. Let me show you that our love is worth fighting for, worth changing for, worth turning the world upside down to preserve." He sank to his knees before her, pulling a familiar velvet box from his pocket. Inside, her engagement ring caught the afternoon light, its alexandrite stone shifting from deep blue to violet, just like their love story. Complex, beautiful, and ever-changing. "Serena Cotto," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I'm asking you again, not as the shy billionaire bound by social constraints, but as the man you helped me become. Marry me. Build a life with me. Let's use our combined strength to create something beautiful in photography, in philanthropy, in love." She pulled him to his feet, her heart overflowing. "Yes," she whispered against his lips. "Always yes." Their kiss was a homecoming, a healing, a new beginning. When they finally parted, Elias rested his forehead against hers. "I have something else for you," he murmured. From his briefcase, he withdrew a large envelope. Inside were preliminary plans for a new children's art foundation, combining their passions, her photography program for underprivileged youth, his business acumen, and resources. The first page bore both their names as co-directors. "See," he said softly, "we don't have to choose between love and duty. We can build something greater together than either of us could achieve alone." Serena traced their names on the document, seeing the future unfold before them. "Like the photographs I take, finding beauty in unexpected places, revealing the extraordinary in the ordinary." "Nothing about our love is ordinary," Elias smiled, pulling her close again, "and I intend to spend the rest of my life proving that to you." The afternoon light painted them in gold, as they stood in her modest studio, two hearts beating as one. Outside, the city continued its eternal rhythm, but within these walls, time stood still as love triumphed over prejudice. Trust overcame fear, and two souls found their way back to each other. The vintage camera pendant gleamed at Serena's throat, no longer a reminder of what was lost, but a symbol of what had been found. A love strong enough to overcome any obstacle, to bridge any divide, to transform both lovers into their best selves. As the sun set over Brooklyn, casting long shadows through the industrial windows, Elias and Serena began planning their future, not just their wedding or their professional collaboration, but the legacy they would build together, a foundation of love, art, and compassion that would touch countless lives. And, in the fading light, Serena's camera captured one final shot, their intertwined hands resting on the foundation documents, her engagement ring catching the light, transforming ordinary sunset into something magical, just as their love had transformed two individuals into something extraordinary, a force for change, for good, for beauty in an often harsh world. Chapter 11. A new beginning. Spring returned to the Hart estate, painting the grounds in delicate shades of renewal. Cherry blossoms drifted like snow across manicured lawns, while early roses climbed ancient stone walls with fresh determination. Nature itself seemed to mirror the transformation taking place within the mansion's limestone walls. Victoria and Edward Hart stood in the grand hall, their luggage arranged with military precision before the sweeping staircase. After the exposure of Victoria's plot and her removal from operational control of the family enterprises, they had decided to take up permanent residence at their villa in Provence. Yet one final meeting remained, a conversation that would determine whether the Hart legacy would be defined by division or redemption. Serena's hand rested securely in Elias's as they descended the staircase together. Her simple cream dress spoke of the quiet confidence she had maintained throughout every challenge, while the vintage camera pendant at her throat caught morning light like a prism, scattering rainbow fragments across marble floors. Victoria's perfect posture betrayed tension in every line. The past month had stripped away her carefully constructed armor of social superiority, leaving her facing truths she had spent a lifetime avoiding. Edward stood slightly behind his wife, his distinguished features marked by new understanding. "Mother, father," Elias said formally, "before you depart, Serena has something to say." Victoria's lips parted, perhaps to deliver one final barbed comment, but the words died as Serena stepped forward. From her camera bag, she withdrew a carefully wrapped package, its paper bearing the Hart family crest. "Mrs. Hart," Serena began, her voice clear and steady, "I've brought something for you." Victoria accepted the package with visible reluctance, her manicured fingers trembling as she removed the elegant wrapping. Inside lay a leather-bound album, its cover embossed with the same crest that had witnessed generations of family history. The first photograph showed Victoria and Edward at their first charity gala together. 50 years ago, their young faces shining with love and ambition, untouched by the weight of social expectations that would later shape their choices. Subsequent pages traced their journey through decades, quiet moments in the garden, proud snapshots at business celebrations, tender glances caught when they thought no one was watching. "How did you?" Victoria's voice faltered as she turned pages that captured a life she had almost forgotten living. "I found these while documenting the foundation's history," Serena explained. "Each image shows a couple who built something remarkable together, who faced challenges with united strength. That's the legacy Elias and I want to continue, not the walls of privilege and prejudice, but the foundation of love and service to others that you originally created." Tears gathered in Victoria's eyes as she reached the final photograph. It showed her dancing with Edward in the conservatory on their last anniversary, their faces holding the same tenderness as the young couple from 50 years ago. "I see now," Victoria whispered, touching the image with trembling fingers. "What you capture with your camera, it's not just appearances, is it? It's truth, reality." She looked up at Serena with new understanding. "The way you see my son, the way you've always seen him through a lens of love." Serena confirmed gently. "The same way these photographs show the real Victoria Hart, not the society matron afraid of change, but the woman who loved deeply enough to build a legacy with her husband." Edward stepped forward, his arm sliding around Victoria's waist in a gesture of support they hadn't displayed publicly in years. "We forgot," he said heavily. "Somewhere along the way, we forgot what really matters." "It's not too late to remember," Serena said, reaching for Elias's hand. "The Foundation's new structure includes advisory roles for both of you, focusing on the charitable works that originally inspired your success, not as controllers, but as mentors, sharing your experience to help us grow something even more meaningful." Victoria closed the album carefully, her usual mask of superiority replaced by genuine emotion. "Why?" she asked simply. "After what I did to you, why offer us any place in your future?" "Because love isn't about keeping score," Serena replied. "It's about seeing the best in people, even when they can't see it themselves. Your son taught me that, though I suspect he learned it first from watching his parents build something wonderful together." Elias squeezed her hand gently before speaking. "The private jet is ready whenever you wish to depart, but perhaps we could have one last family breakfast together first. Serena makes amazing French toast." The invitation hung in the air, weighted with possibility. Victoria looked down at the album in her hands, then at the young couple before her. For the first time, she saw not a threat to her control, but a chance for her family's legacy to evolve into something greater. "I'd like that," she said softly, if you're sure we're welcome." The kitchen soon filled with unexpected warmth as Serena taught Victoria the secret to perfectly caramelized bananas, while Elias and his father discussed plans for the foundation's expansion. Sunlight streamed through windows that had witnessed countless formal breakfasts, but never this kind of genuine connection. As they shared the meal together, walls built over decades began to crumble. Victoria asked about Serena's photography techniques, showing sincere interest in her artistic vision. Edward revealed funny stories from Elias's childhood that had been deemed too undignified for previous tellings. Laughter real and unrestrained echoed through rooms that had too long known only proper chuckles. Later, as the elder Harts prepared to depart for their new life in Europe, Victoria pulled Serena aside. "I was wrong about so many things," she admitted. Touching the album she refused to pack away with other belongings. "But most of all, I was wrong about you. You have more nobility in your loving heart than all our generations of social status." "We all have nobility within us," Serena replied, touching the pendant that symbolized her journey. "Sometimes it just takes the right lens to bring it into focus." As the car pulled away down the estate's winding drive, Elias gathered Serena in his arms. "You amaze me," he murmured into her hair. "Your capacity for forgiveness, for seeing beauty in broken things and helping them become whole again." Serena turned in his embrace, reaching up to trace his beloved features. Nothing is ever truly broken when love is the force holding it together. Your parents just needed to be reminded of that. Together, they walked through the mansion that would soon become not just a family home, but the headquarters of their expanded foundation. Each room held memories of past pain, now transformed by forgiveness into opportunities for growth. The conservatory, once the site of Victoria's cruel plot, would become a teaching space for young photographers. The formal gardens would host art therapy sessions for children from the hospital. "We'll fill these halls with love and creativity," Serena said, her photographer's eye already seeing the potential in every space. "The next generation of hearts will grow up knowing that true worth lies not in preserving old ways, but in finding new paths to help others." A spring breeze carried cherry blossoms through open windows, nature's blessing on their plans for renewal. The vintage camera pendant gleamed at Serena's throat, reflecting light onto walls that had witnessed generations of heart history. Now, those same walls would witness something new, a legacy built not on privilege and protocol, but on love's profound power to transform hearts and heal wounds. As evening painted the sky in shades of promise, Elias and Serena stood in their rooftop garden, surrounded by herbs and flowers that symbolized their own growth together. Below them, the estate stretched out like a kingdom ready for renaissance. Above them, the first stars appeared, blessing their vision of a future where love's light could penetrate even the darkest corners of tradition and fear. The shy billionaire and the sensitive photographer had discovered something rare and precious, the ability to see beyond surfaces to the truth beneath, to find beauty in unexpected places, and to believe in love's power to change not just two lives, but an entire legacy. Chapter 12. Love triumphant expanded ending moonlight painted silver paths across the Hart Estate's east wing as Elias led Serena up the winding staircase to their private chambers. The Foundation's gala had been a triumph, marking not just their professional success, but the complete transformation of the Hart legacy. Her cream silk gown whispered against the marble steps, while his hand, at the small of her back, guided her with tender possessiveness. Their suite had been transformed in their absence. Hundreds of candles cast golden light across the antique furnishings, their flames dancing in the evening breeze from open balcony doors. Rose petals created a fragrant carpet leading to their bedroom, their deep red a striking contrast against cream carpets. "When did you arrange this?" Serena asked softly, touching the vintage camera pendant at her throat. "I have my secrets," Elias murmured, drawing her into his arms, though I suspect Beatrice had a hand in the execution. The night air carried the scent of blooming jasmine from their rooftop garden, mingling with the rose's perfume. In the distance, the last notes of music from the gala drifted up a romantic melody that seemed written for this moment. "Dance with me," Elias said, one hand settling at her waist, while the other clasped hers against his heart. "Here in our sanctuary, just the two of us." They moved together in perfect harmony, their bodies finding the natural rhythm they had discovered in every aspect of their relationship. Serena's head rested against his chest, where she could hear the strong, steady beating of his heart. "Do you remember the first time we danced?" she asked, smiling at the memory. "At the museum gala, when you were so shy you could barely look at me. And now I can't take my eyes off you," he replied, his voice deepening with emotion. "You've transformed me. My love taught me that true strength lies not in hiding one's heart, but in having the courage to share it freely." Serena lifted her face to his, moonlight catching the happy tears in her eyes. "And you've shown me that love isn't about fitting into someone else's world. It's about creating our own." Their kiss was tender at first, a gentle acknowledgement of their journey together. But as Elias's hands tightened at her waist, as Serena's fingers threaded through his hair, the passion that had always simmered between them blazed to life. He lifted her into his arms, carrying her through the rose-strewn path to their bedroom. Candles cast intimate shadows across the silk sheets, transforming their private space into something magical. "My beautiful photographer," Elias whispered, setting her gently on her feet. "Let me show you how much I love you." His fingers traced the delicate line of her neck, following the chain of her pendant down to where it rested against her collarbone. Serena shivered at his touch, her own hands moving to loosen his tie. "My shy billionaire," she breathed against his lips, not so shy anymore. Their coming together was both tender and passionate, a perfect expression of the journey that had brought them to this moment. Every touch held meaning, every kiss carried the weight of their shared history and the promise of their future. The moonlight blessed their union, turning skin to silver and shadows to silk. Later, as they lay entwined in the quiet hours before dawn, Serena traced lazy patterns on Elias's chest. The vintage camera pendant rested on the nightstand beside her engagement ring, both catching moonlight and scattering it like diamonds across their sanctuary. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart beneath her fingertips. "About endings and beginnings," he replied thoughtfully. "About how what seemed like the end, you walking away that rainy day, turned out to be the beginning of something greater than either of us imagined." She propped herself up on one elbow to look at him, admiring how the candlelight gilded his features. "And what do you imagine now?" "A lifetime of moments like these, of building something meaningful together, of filling these halls with love and purpose." His hand came up to cup her cheek. "Of watching you transform lives, through your art, the way you transformed mine, through your love." Serena leaned down to kiss him softly. "Then let's begin," she whispered against his lips. The night wrapped around them like a lover's embrace as they came together again, their passion burning brighter than ever. Outside, the estate's gardens bloomed under moonlight, promising new growth, new life, new possibilities. Inside, two hearts beat as one, their love a testament to the power of seeing beyond surfaces to the truth beneath. As the first light of dawn painted the sky in shades of promise, Elias held Serena close against his heart. She fit perfectly in his arms, as if she had been created just for this purpose. The shy billionaire and the sensitive photographer had discovered something rare and precious, a love that could transform not just two lives, but an entire legacy. "I love you," he murmured into her hair. "Today, tomorrow, for all the days of forever." "And I love you," she replied, her voice rich with emotion. "My heart, my home, my ever after." The rising sun blessed their union with golden light, while the vintage camera pendant and alexandrite ring caught its rays and scattered them like promises across their private paradise. Their story would be told for generations in the Hart family, not as a cautionary tale of rebellion against tradition, but as a testament to love's power to transform, heal, and create something greater than the sum of its parts. For in the end, that was the greatest fortune of all, not the billions in their accounts or the prestige of their name, but the priceless treasure of two hearts beating in perfect harmony. writing their own fairy tale with every shared breath and tender touch.